Catch Outdoors. I'm your host, Captain Rob Modis. This podcast is about living and playing in the Florida Keys, a 125-mile long chain of islands. I cover my favorite sport, fishing, but also all the many things to see and do down here in the Keys. Catch Outdoors is hosted by Spotify, also brought to you by your favorite podcast network. So kick back and relax with me in the Keys. This week's episode of Catch Outdoors is number 128. Hello all. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you've tuned into the podcast. Of course, you'll notice some changes. The intro is different. I'm not titling anymore. I don't know, just got a wild hair. It's okay. I'll still have posting up what the podcast is about on both the Spotify page as well as the Catch Outdoors website. So that's catchoutdoors.com. You can go in there to take a look at that if there's any questions. But anyway, just thought it would be easier. I'm running out of titles. Weather's finally turned more towards summer. Oh my goodness, the sky is blue with those great big cumulus clouds in it. Sunsets are getting way more interesting. I mean, way more interesting. Sunsets they're downright beautiful all of a sudden. Saw one the other day that was pink. It's turned the entire sky to pink. We're also getting the radiant reds, oranges, yellows, all that fun stuff. So, sunset watching in the summer is way better than sunset watching in the winter. Winter skies can be quite boring. By evening, a lot of times, whatever cloud we had is gone. So when we have cold fronts, of course, it's just cool and windy. And so the sun just kind of melts into the water pretty much. So anyway, it's I like it when it finally does this. So and finally it turns into sunsets with lots and lots of clouds around. You get reflections. What you get. You also get what we call reverse sunsets. You got enough cloud cover around. As the sun goes down, it shines up under the clouds. It's generally what happens, especially if you've got a front approaching with clouds and the sun goes under it, it'll just light the whole place up. And then sometimes you have clouds behind you, so you got a sunset in the west. Behind you in the east, you got a whole row of clouds. As the sun goes down, it lights them up. So we get what's called a reverse sunset, or what we call a reverse sunset. So, but anyway, that's how it goes. Over the years, I've noticed something interesting about sunsets too. People at the sunsets, there'll be a whole mess of people. In our case, there's a park down the road, and everybody goes to this park because it's got a great overwater angle over Blackwater Sound, looking toward the west. And as the sun goes down, you got all this conversation, kids running around. It's I won't call it hectic. People are usually there either just before or after dinner, depending on the time of year. And what you notice is all this conversation, and then as the time gets closer to the sunset, people get quieter and quieter. It's something I've really noticed. It's like a meditative state, that you get in when you watch that sun go down. Here they don't cheer. They don't clap when the sun goes down. That happens at Mallory Square down in Key West. But here it's more of this really personal quiet time, and I've noticed that, and just wanted to share that with you. It's kind of an interesting thing. It's almost like, day is done, and I made it, and I'm gonna go home and go to bed, and wait for day number 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever the next day. So, anyway, just wanted to run that by you. The highs and lows are just a few degrees off from each other now. So 72 last night with a high of 81 today. And it's kind of funny. It's just been like 72, 3 to maybe 76, 78. Today was the first time we've hit 80 in a while here in Key Largo. Sun comes and goes. The last cold front headed our way, stopped and retreated just before it reached the Miami area. Yes, indeed. That's something you start to see now as you do back in November. We want a cold front. We're like, come on, man, we're dying from the heat here. Send us something. And it always stops, and then it turns into a stationary front, and then it turns around and goes the other way. And it does the same thing in the springtime. When we start to get into March, not quite April, these cold fronts have a hard time pushing against that Gulf air and the Atlantic air with moisture and density, I guess is what it is. I'm guessing here. But it's kind of interesting to watch. This recent one, we watched it chug on down the state, and then it just quit. We got another one coming in, I think it's Thursday night into Friday morning, and that one's going to do the same thing, but it's going to go stationary on the Keys. It's supposed to make it right here to us and stop. So we'll see what happens. either way, it makes fishing more interesting because as you get these close by fronts and these reversals, what happens when they reverse is the wind switches out of the south. And I quite personally believe that in the world of fishing, just about anywhere, you can hardly beat a south wind. I'm not going to say that east or west or north you won't catch fish. You will if you work at it. But there ain't nothing like a south wind up in the back country. It seems to really, 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 really work. I'm recording this on Monday to give you all a reference point. It's March 4th. Yeah, Sunday we went and played. I'll get into that in a minute. By the time I got home, I was like, no, I don't know. Well, I didn't get home till this morning, so, I got to wait. They're working on the house next door again. That thing had gone kind of dormant and quiet for a while, and then all of a sudden, I guess they got a permit, something, got pushed through, it works, and now they're back over there banging around, so impossible to record when that's going on. So it's late afternoon. It's almost cocktail hour, but I won't rush this. Maybe I will. The weather outlook for this coming week looks real good. Mostly sunny days and some afternoon possible showers are going to be mixed in. The tides aren't the best for fishing as we just getting past the half moon. However, new moon is on the 10th. So that's only about a week away. And so that means the tidal currents will be improving pretty rapidly, pretty quickly. In other words, we'll get some nice moving stuff 3 days before that. So that would be the 7th? Yeah. And then 3 or 4 days after that. So we got a nice spread coming up with tides. We were down in Key West, and I'll get to that in a minute. Coming back across the bridges this morning, I noticed it was very low in the morning. So I'm going to go with that for right now. I know that's going to change by the time I fish. Which, well, no, it won't. I'm hoping to get out there tomorrow, Tuesday. So we'll see how that goes. Last week, I reported water temperatures in the middle 60s. The ocean was at 68, as a matter of fact. In some places in the Atlantic, we're doing 65 to 66 degrees. Crazy, off of Key Largo. They've already bounced back. I took a reading this morning, and it's 73 degrees, which means the shallow waters of the backcountry should be even warmer. I'm going to test that, like I said. Test that theory tomorrow. I'm going fishing, finally. It's been a long drought for me, but necessary. For a retired person, I sure had a full calendar over the past couple of weeks. Yeah, and the weather wasn't all that great. I'm not going out there when the wind's howling. I could crawl across some area and hide if I had to, but it's just, I'm sorry, I'm not in the charter business, and I feel sorry for the charter captains because I know that's exactly what they had to do, and I know they caught fish. I saw some reports. I'm just not going to go out there and take that kind of abuse to my body. I'm too old for that crap, so... Last week I mentioned the need for a serious warm-up to get the bite going. I believe that happened. I really do. I'm so hoping to get out there at least a couple times this week. I'm going to shoot for tomorrow, and then I looked at Thursday. Thursday we got a shift in wind because of that front coming on Friday. And again, south winds are great, and fishing in front of a front with the south winds even better. So we'll see. I'm going to do my best. Let's just put it that way. Let's see, what else have I got on? Spring break. It's in full swing down here in the Keys. We didn't feel it as much here in Key Largo as in other places. Janelle and I, like I said, just returned from Key West. It was full of young folks. Obviously, they're to party or get married, whichever comes first. No, seriously, there was I call it the gaggle of girls in their 20s. Yeah, in their 20s. And that's the bridesmaids bunch, hanging out in the Key West. And then, of course, we saw the guys. We saw the bachelors and the bachelors' assistants and friends and all that fun stuff. And that was happening quite often. So weddings are real popular in the Keys this time of year. So pretty weather, warmer. If you can talk the family into traveling instead of having a home wedding, then there you go. And they were here. They were here pretty thick. And then the spring break people are here, as well as visitors, lots of visitors. I heard lots of languages spoken. Italian, French. That's the two main ones I heard. There was a cruise ship sitting in port. I don't know where it came from. I don't know who was on it, but it was a huge cruise ship. Was sitting there on Sunday morning, and it left around 4 in the afternoon. I think they tried to get them out of the way before sunset. Otherwise, people are going to raise Cain. But a lot of folks were in town. A lot of folks down there on Sunday. Here's some big news for you, folks. I'm sure some of my listeners have probably already heard about this, but if not, Papa Joe's of Islamorada is finally open once again. This is an iconic place. That's the only way I can really talk about this thing. It's big news because the place has created a lot of great memories for residents and visitors, and mostly boaters, fishing folks. Papa Joe's sits on a little spit of land off of US 1, right across from the famous Bud and Mary's Marina. So it's right before you hit the bridge that goes over I call them the little spit islands, before you hit Robbie's on the right-hand side going south. So it once stood there. It was old. It was built in, I looked it up, 1938. That's when it originally opened as a watering hole for locals and tourists. And I spent many a time in there, to be honest with you, especially traveling back and forth. And Janelle and I, with the boat down here in the 90s, we would go to Papa Joe's. That was a place to go. And it was like that through the 80s and 90s. It was just one of those neat places. It had a main building, a bar, and then it had an extension hang out the back toward the water on stilts. And that was like a bar that was off water, and it had the most fabulous view. That's all there is to it. It closed in 2006 after the owner passed away. And then I think it went into probate. From what I read in a report this morning before I did the podcast, I think it went to probate, and it just sat there. And it deteriorated through storms and weather and things in Florida. Don't take care of stuff in Florida, it'll just go away. And eventually fell down, and eventually was torn down in 2011. And that was one of those things when all of us down here who had visited and been around it, that was kind of a bummer. No, it was more than a kind of. It was a bummer. It really was. There were many, many conversations about rebuilding the place. We heard all kinds of stories that it was going to be done. It never happened. And then finally in 2011, after 2011, there were conversations. Captain Charles Hurdle took the reins. This was in, I want to say it was 10 years, so it would have been 2016. What's this, 24? Yeah, it was around 2016, if I'm not mistaken. He was a captain at Bud and Mary's, and he had a lot of wealthy clients. And one of them that he had was an entrepreneurial client who had opened many Wendy's chains and things like that. And he told this man about his idea about doing this, about reviving Papa Joe's. And the guy liked the idea so much that not only did he help put up the money, he joined Captain Charles to get it done. And that's really how it happened. His name is Bob Lee, successful businessman. So the two of them worked together for the last 3 years, putting it back together again. And you can imagine what that was like. This is permit hell, like all places near water are right now, especially after storms. You don't just build something back. You have got to go through an unimaginable amount of hoops to get something done here on the Florida shoreline. So giant stilt, concrete beams, the whole thing. So people were worried that this would not be like Papa Joe's, which was kind of this rickety wooden thing, which of course that's why it fell down. But they did a great job. And I can say that because we were so lucky. Janelle and I got fortunate enough to be invited to the pre-opening last week. I think it was on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. No, I think it was Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday. And we got to go over there and experience the food, which is delicious, and walk around the property and see what they've done. And I got to tell you what, man, it is amazing. If you're coming to the Keys and you're going through Islamorada, you're heading down to Marathon, Key West, Big Pine, something like that, be sure to make a stop at Papa Joe's. You really want to check it out. They have restored the bar out over the water area out by the end of the dock and looking out on the water, and it's fabulous. I'm so happy, and it made a lot of Keys people really happy. It officially opened on Friday, March 1st. The hours seemed to me they were like 11 to 10 or 11 to 11 on weekends. So it opens up for lunch. It's not a breakfast spot, although there was talk while we were there about doing breakfast there. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but that'd be nice. Got a huge dock out back. If you come by boat, you got space to tie up the boat and go in there and have a bite to eat. Again, pictures and photographs are great. Something that they did that's really wild. There's a second floor on the place up above, and it has two hotel, I'll call them resort rooms. They're fancy. It's got 2 rooms up there. I didn't ask the price. I was too scared. But it's got windows facing toward the southwest, and it looks right out over some of the most beautiful water you're going to see out down in Islamorada. So That would be a pretty sweet place to stay and spend the night and be able to partake in Papa Joe's down at the bar, the food, and then be able just to go upstairs and spend the night. I think that would be pretty cool. So, but that was a big surprise. So let's see. Oh, and on a personal note, I put this in my notes to mention. After meeting my now wife in Key West back in '95, I stopped there on the way back to Fort Lauderdale. I wrote the words to the song Key West Town there. I was out on that bar, sitting on that bar, and I got one of the waitresses to go get me. She got me a piece of paper. She was really nice. Got me a piece of paper and a pen, and I sat there and wrote down what had been in my head all the way from Key West to Alamorada to Papa Joe's. Got all the words written. And when I got back to Fort Lauderdale, I put the music to it. And many, many, many years later, thanks to Billy Davison, who produced it, is now available on many music sites. That's Key West Town is the name of the song. That was my first official song release. It's funny how the stars align, isn't it? Pretty weird. And speaking of songs, my latest Blue Rendezvous will be available later in the week. I heard the final cut this morning, Monday morning, so I'm excited about that. Pretty proud of this one. I hope you all like it. It should be out, like I said, by the end of the week. Thursday, Friday, it should be available. Where else am I going? Oh, good Lord, traffic. Okay, I thought the traffic here in the Keys was bad. But honestly, no. I had to go to Fort Myers this past week. So that's why I keep saying I'm not fishing, because I got all this crap I've had to do. Went to Fort Myers on Thursday all day. I had multiple doctor appointments there, my checkups that I have to have. And man, oh man, people, I know my friends and probably listen to this that live over there. I feel sorry for you. I really do. It was bad when I left. It is worse now. Good Lord, I'm not going to complain about the Keys traffic again. Well, maybe I will, but not right away. The roads were jammed at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It wasn't even let the school out time. I don't even want to be around when school gets out. That must be completely nuts. I attributed it in my head to only one thing that I can think of. Now, I was up mostly in the Fort Myers area, but like US 41 was crammed. Sanibel has almost no resorts anymore. There are places to stay, and there are things you can do there. But on the good old beach where everybody liked to stay, they can't stay there right now. Most of those resorts are still being rebuilt or closed or being torn down and rebuilt. And so I imagined to myself, if I was a person who'd love to come to Sanibel, I would have looked and tried. And if you can't, the Sanibel beaches are open, but you got to have somewhere to stay. And I think they're staying on the mainland. I think they're all over there from I-75, US 41 in that area. And then they travel out to the beach to go to the beach. And that's where all that damn traffic is coming from. It was nuts. But, and the infrastructure in Fort Myers is not all that great. I mean, there's US 41 north and south, and then you pretty much got the interstate. And the rest of it's back roads or trying to find your way around without hitting those two roads, and that's not easy. So I just wanted to bring that up. I'm not going to complain much about the Keys. We got one road that goes up and down, and everybody kind of knows when to get on it and when not to get on it. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And even though we got spring break going on right now, tourists and snowbirds, it couldn't compare to what I saw on Thursday up there. So I'm sorry, folks. I really am. Okay, I'm going to continue this, even though I believe the lawn people across the street have shown up and are running leaf blowers. So excuse the background, but, I'm doing this in my office. I don't go into a recording studio to do this. So Sunday, we traveled down to Key West for an album release party for singer-songwriter James Slater. I know many folks outside the Keys are probably not even the least bit familiar with him. Let's do it this way. He's written songs that have been picked up by Kenny Chesney, Tim McGraw, Martina McBride, Keith Urban, Old Dominion, Willie Nelson, and many, many more. He's quite the songwriter. His local favorite is Key West Address. Look it up. There's a pretty funny video of it on YouTube. Anyhow, his new album is Key West Address and should be released shortly. He wrote two of my favorite Chesney tunes. One's called The Life, and the other is called Guys Named Captain. Now, the Guys Named Captain, of course, is obvious. And The Life is about pretty much running into someone who, I'll just imagine it was like in the Caribbean, the Bahamas, let's say, a fisherman who's got a huge catch of snapper. And the guy buying that huge catfish snapper wants to be just like that guy. He just wants to be able to go fishing every day and just relax and fish. And grass is always greener on the other side. I can speak as being a guide. It's always not that easy, but then again, the sentiment is there, and so I like that song a lot. Just listening to it, it had a lot to say to me about what I did for a living. And then guy's name Captain, like I said, was really obvious. We certainly got our money's worth last night. The event was scheduled for 8 to 10 p.m., but he played until 11, and he filled in all kinds of songs and had special guests, and I am so glad we went. I wasn't really, it's kind of like, I know who James Slater is, and I know he's written a lot of great songs, but but he was very entertaining. If you get some chance to see him, he lives in Nashville, so I know he plays up in the Midwest sometimes, and it's some trop rock, as they like, tropical rock or trop rock is what they like to call it. But he's more than that. He really writes some excellent songs based on, you can tell by the different artists that have picked up his songs and done them. We did get to hear a couple of brand new ones that have not even been, one of them hadn't even been recorded yet. But it was great, and I know it's going to be good. The title was somewhat like Buffett and Chesney's Fault, is basically what it was. Or I think it was It's All Buffett and Chesney's Fault, I think is what he said the title would be, or the working title is. And basically it's a lighthearted song about how most of us live that love beaches and water and fishing and hanging outside and drinking rum and partying and listening to music and that kind of stuff. And he blames all of his terrible vices and things that he's doing on Buffett and Chesney's songs. And I just think really that's such a cool take, because let's face it, man, Buffett, he invented Margaritaville, literally. Put it all over the map, but the real places we like to refer to Margaritaville is Key West. But anyway, that song was great. I'll look forward to it when it comes out. If it comes out and I hear about it, I will certainly let you all know. We'll be returning to Key West for the Songwriters Festival in May. Janelle and I are already planning to be there. It'll be the first time we've done this. And it's kind of funny because Billy Davidson, who's producing my music, said, you have to go. And I was, okay, all right. I'm not going to argue with him. And he said, he's going to have special art. He's going to have some backyard parties at a special place they stay. And I'm really looking forward to it. The more I can learn from these people, the better. I am certainly enjoying this a lot. Don't forget to set your clocks forward an hour this coming Sunday. While most of our clocks set themselves to the new time, I personally have a few that don't. My old ship's clock on the wall in the living room, that ding, 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 that type of clock, nope, got to fix it. Got to set the hands and the whole bit in that daggone thing. And then I got to set the stove, the microwave, and the Keurig coffee maker. You would think after all this time they'd have an auto for those three appliances, but no. And these are new. We're in a fairly new home. So anyway, however, they did fix vehicles in most cases. If you've bought a new vehicle not too long ago, let's say back to about 2021, 2020 maybe, a lot of them now have an automatic clock in them, and the clock automatically updates itself, and which is kind of funny because in a car, when you had to change it, either push it back or push it forward, just figuring out how to do it was a chore. Most of us never play with the clock in a vehicle. So, but anyway, I know this one has automatic, and my Jeep did too. So yay! And a final note: don't be late to church. This setting of the clocks forward is a really good way to mess up, or any other appointment on Sunday for that matter. Don't be late going fishing. Don't do that, man. So, hey, I just got another word. I was talking about Papa Joe's being exciting. We lost a really good guy, Mike of Mangrove Mike's, a few years back. And Mangrove Mike's restaurant is in the heart of Alamorada and is known for one of the best breakfasts around. And I just heard it came out in one of the press releases today that his niece Paige Keel has acquired Mangrove Mike's and plans to just carry on exactly what was going on. So I think that's really great. That's another place kind of saved by the bell, if you will. That's another thing that went through a lot of litigation to get it done, but. I read a whole review of her and her husband and how enthused they are about carrying on Mike's great breakfasts. You talk to people in Alamorada, like, where do you go to breakfast? Mangrove Mike's. That's pretty much what they'll say right off the bat. So it's good. It's good to hear that that place is coming back. It's got one of the best breakfasts in the Florida Keys, in my opinion. Oh, yeah, I've received several inquiries about my kayaks that I had for sale. Had. Yes, had. Stop. They're sold. Thank you, though. And thanks, Mike. Mike put the word out to a couple of fishing clubs, one in particular that he was a member of down in Marco Island, and I got a lot of response from that. So anyway, thanks a bunch, Mike. I really appreciate it. They're out of here. I don't have to worry about them anymore. I tell everybody that knows anything about Florida, I loved my kayaks and I love kayak fishing, but I bought a boat. And I love my boat because it takes me to places that the kayaks can't possibly go, back way up in the backcountry. And that's my favorite place, no doubt about it. I love going up there. And I was letting them sit. I would keep them clean. I'd make sure they were covered. I make sure that all the accessories were in the garage, not out in the weather, that kind of thing. But if you let something sit outside and you don't use it in Florida, it goes to hell. That's all. I don't care if it's a car, motorcycle, boat, kayaks, canoes, whatever. It's just going to be bad. And that's what was going to happen, and I knew it. And so I was trying to get those things. So I've been trying for a couple of months, and finally I put a ridiculous price on them, and that did it. So again, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. And now that my new song is being released this week, we'll begin work on a new one. The songwriting stuff has been highly addictive. I equate it to fishing. Yes. I'm addicted to fishing. There's no doubt about that. God, I need to get back out there. You know, I was telling my wife, Janelle, this is really like fishing in some ways, though, especially as a charter fishing guide. Many jobs are constant works in progress. So, you know, I was a technology manager for a bank, and you start these technology projects, and it can just go on, and it never ends, is what it's. Even after the branch is open, you've done all the technological stuff. There are issues come up and problems. You're always messing with it to get it right. So one thing I loved about charter fishing was it was a job that you were done with it. You went out, you started your morning, you got your bait, you took the folks out, you caught fish, hopefully. You work hard at that. You come back in, you clean some fish, folks go home, they pay you, you're done. That's it, over and out. Then you start another job tomorrow, or maybe later in the afternoon if you got double trips. But there's a beginning and an end, and I always like that. Songwriting is very much the same way. You write a song, and then the music, and then the producer makes it pretty, and then it's released, and that's that. There's an ending. And I love it. I really do. I'm not going to tell you I like it as much as fishing, because that would not be true. I like fishing more than anything else. But as a hobby, songwriting kind of started a long time ago and now has suddenly flourished into something much larger than I thought it was going to be. And I'm really enjoying it. I like writing songs. I mentioned last week I was going through some boxes in the storage room, found 25 copies of each one of my 25 copies each of my 3 previous books. I've discounted them on the website. Go to catchyoutoutdoors.com. Check it out if you want to get some. I've sold a few. There's plenty left. Get on there if you want one. They're signed, and I'll send them to you, including shipping. You don't have to pay the shipping. I need to make them go. That's another thing I don't want sitting around. Got to get them out of here. So, and let's see what's next. Oh, and now it's time for useless information.
And now, from the original book of useless information.
You are a reject! You are useless! You can get a job down here cleaning toilets!
Here's your host, Captain Rob Modies.
Well, he swears up and down he's useless, but
he might be all right eventually, but completely useless.
With useless information.
And here we go. Dun, 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 dun. As most folks know by now, I do 3 of these. I will refrain from comment unless I start laughing at my own joke, which is not appropriate. Anyway, number 1, the elephant is the only mammal that can't jump. Is that really useless? Yeah, it is. It's interesting. Number 2, there have been more than 1,500 documented sightings of Bigfoot since 1958. 1,500. Yeah, man. I don't know. We got the swamp dude down here. People keep swearing they see the swamp dude. That's what I call it. The swamp ape. But Bigfoot, man. Wow. Number 3, the first man to distill bourbon whiskey was a Baptist preacher in 1789. You talk about oxymoron, man. Wow. I mean, the Baptists do not dig. They ain't real crazy about drinking, right? So this man made whiskey. I'd love to find out how all that happened. So anyway. All right, well, there you go until next week. I have to say that spring has sprung here in the Keys. At least it's finally looking that way. Keeping my fingers crossed for some good fishing this coming week. I'll report what happens on the next podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed listening, please tell a friend, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. The Facebook page is Catch Outdoors. The website is catchoutdoors.com, where you can find all the previous podcasts and a schedule of what's to come. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.